This is the Paycheck to Daycheck Reselling Podcast.
I'm Liz.
And I'm Ashley.
Together, we have been making money online collectively for over 10 years.
Our mission is to help you start, learn, and grow a reselling business and to inspire you to turn your paycheck into a daycheck.
The world is changing, and we want to help you change with it.
Welcome back to the Paycheck to Daycheck podcast. This is episode number 4, and today we are going to be talking about what your goal is with reselling.
When you are starting to resell, you really need to take a step back, think about why are you reselling? Like, what's your purpose? What do you want to do? Do you want to just sell some stuff laying around the house? Do you want to do it part-time just to make extra money? Do you want to pay off some bills? Do you want to do it eventually full-time, end up leaving your 9-to-5 or W-2, or if you want like time freedom, because that's another thing that people want when they are going to full-time resell, is that they want to have the freedom to do what they want.
Definitely. Yeah. Having a really clear vision from the start. And that's not saying that that vision can't change along the way. I never thought that I would end up being a full-time reseller as quickly as I did. Like March 2020 happened and that kind of threw me way ahead of schedule, but I had a clear plan to get to that point. And then I just had to adjust that plan once March 2020 happened. Things will definitely change along the way, but having a clear vision of where you want to end up is super important because that's going to help you make the right choices right from the beginning.
Yeah, I think that is very important. And I think a lot of people have that, you really need to, like, if you are working full time right now, don't think that you're going to just start reselling and all of a sudden you're going to quit your job. Like, that's unrealistic. But to have that as a goal, that's definitely reachable. But I think a lot of people start and then they don't see the results right away. And that's a lot of times why people give up, is they just get frustrated. They want to leave their job so bad. And I know that's how Casey was. I was blessed to be married and have a second income. So if I wanted to resell, like, I didn't have the pressure of having to work and pay the bills with that stuff and then also balance reselling. I feel very lucky for that. If you are working full time, have that as just a goal in the background, and you don't have to necessarily leave your job overnight. I would not recommend that.
Yeah, no one, if your vision, if your goal is to ultimately leave your full-time job, no one wants to hear someone else say, don't quit your job right now or wait to quit your job. Like, no one wants to hear that. I didn't want to hear that. And I was like, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to do it. Realistically, you want to hang on to that full-time job for as long as you can to help build your bankroll. If you have health benefits, that's really helpful because finding health insurance like on the marketplace is pretty expensive these days. So just having that in your, in your pocket is definitely helpful, especially if you have a family. So hanging on to that full-time job for as long as you can is ideal for sure.
Yeah. So after your goals with reselling, another thing to also consider is, what do you want to resell? Like, what do you want to sell? And I think a lot of times people sometimes start with items around their house. Maybe, they have a dresser that they need to get rid of that they're going to sell on Facebook Marketplace. And that's great. That's still reselling an item. A lot of people want to go to thrift stores, or they're really into garage sales or flea market. You just have to really think about, what do you want to resell? Because that's going to determine where you're going to get your merchandise and your inventory to resell.
Yeah, there's a really low barrier to entry. For example, in clothes, there's so much clothing in this country. It's unbelievable, at thrift stores, garage sales, like just everywhere. So it's very easy to access, and you can generally get it for a pretty low price point and start to build up some inventory and bankroll that way. That's how I started. I mentioned that before. Turns out that I actually really dislike the process of reselling clothing. I don't like taking pictures of it. I don't like listing it. It just isn't what is interesting to me. I've never really been super into clothing and fashion and stuff like that. And I think that you kind of have to have a love for it. Like, you can kind of power your way through it if you need to. And I did for years. When I had a moment to breathe and think about it, I realized that I really don't like doing this. So I kind of switched gears and then got more into doing retail arbitrage, or RA. an OA, online arbitrage, and going into stores or placing orders online at like places like Walmart, Target, Walgreens, things of that nature. And I got much more joy out of listing and selling and shipping things that were brand new in the box. It was so much easier to list those items. The profit was a little bit less. I found that it reignited my passion for reselling at that point a couple of years in. Having an idea of what you enjoy, the things that you might be interested in, and going from there, that will probably save you a little bit of pain in the long run.
Right. But that has to be like a goal. Like you have to think about not only why you want to resell, but what are you going to resell? So those are two important things to think of.
Yeah, definitely. Let's say you want to start with, thrifting, going to garage sales, things of that nature. There are definitely different niches within those used items. You can find new items there, but generally it's going to be used items that you're finding, different niches like shoes, clothing that I mentioned before. Maybe you want to focus on hard goods, so there's so many different niches.
All right, and so now it's time for the reseller toolbox. And for today's reseller toolbox, we want to give you a big tip that you should think about when you are even just putting goals together for reselling is to have an inventory sheet, because you need to be tracking what kind of inventory you have and where it's being stored. That's a big thing. You don't want to just list something and put it off to the side, not know where it is, not have any details, because before you know it, you'll start listing items and then you'll forget, where did I put it? How much did I pay for it? So those things are very important. I know that we use Easy Auctions Tracker, and we're just getting into My Reseller Genie, which My Reseller Genie is a new software and data program for resellers, and it's got accounting tools. But that one honestly is something that would be an entire episode because there's so much to it. I wouldn't recommend going out and paying for software right now. I would just find something, use a spreadsheet, do something for free. But the important thing is to make sure that you're doing that right now and thinking about how you're going to track inventory.
Definitely. Yeah. Just start something, keep track of it somehow. So I started with Excel, inventory tracker in Excel, and then I moved to Google Sheets. It's just easier to access everywhere on my laptop, phone, etc. So it's free. It's easy. Just do it.
Yeah. All right, back to the episode.
So something that I wanted to bring up was you can also use reselling, whether it's full-time or part-time, to fund other ventures. So maybe reselling isn't the end-all be-all for you. Maybe your 9-to-5 isn't the end-all be-all for you, and that's totally fine. So I know that there's some people that I follow on Instagram specifically who use reselling to fund something else. eBay Princess, for example, that's her handle on Instagram. She uses reselling to build up a bankroll, and then she buys these houses in her area. They fix them up and they turn them into rental properties or Airbnbs, which I think is wicked cool. So that's her goal. Like that's her vision. So that keeps her running every day towards her goal, keeps her listing it, on the days when she doesn't want to go into the office. Having a clear vision definitely helps. She'll eventually someday be able to retire on that rental income, and she's using reselling to get to that end goal.
That's really cool. If your goal is to go full time and be a full-time reseller, there are a few things that you really need to think about. One of the things is, do you have the space? A lot of times people only have a bedroom or a closet that they can, sacrifice to reselling. So really that's one thing that if you are thinking of going full-time, do you have the space? Do you have the time? A lot of people don't realize there is a lot of work that goes into reselling. Some people say that it's passive income. I think it is far from passive. Closest you can get is maybe on Amazon, and you hire everything out and you're not doing anything, but to get there, takes a lot of work. You still have to invest a lot of time. And if you're looking for something that is going to free up time, yes, you have the flexibility to take off. For example, Casey and I just went down to Mexico for our anniversary, and we were able to take off for the week. Leading up to that and after it, we worked our behinds off. Yes, you have the flexibility to take time off, but you really have to put in that time. Another thing to think about is the capital. It's a business. You only have so much around the house that's free, and maybe your goal is to just flip free items on Facebook Marketplace. But a lot of times with reselling, you're going to need the capital. You're going to need money to go out and buy items, whether it's at a thrift store, a retail shop, online, garage sale, wherever. Reinvest your profits. still have money to pay the bills, pay for expenses, pay for taxes. There's a lot of capital that is needed to do reselling.
Definitely. I think a huge problem for a lot of small businesses and specifically resellers, they don't treat it like a business from the beginning. Running out of capital is one of the main reasons why their businesses end up failing in the long run. The last thing that we wanted to discuss with you guys is, are you self-motivated? Do you have the discipline to be a reseller, whether that's full-time or part-time? There's no one watching you. There's no one around watching you, hovering over your shoulder, micromanaging you, which is definitely a plus, but it's also hard sometimes. Like if you have a full-time job already, if you're going to try your hand at reselling, are you going to list before you go to work, after you go to work? Are you going to try to sneak some listings in while you're at work?
So the advantage is you're your own boss, but the disadvantage is you're your own boss. So if you're not doing it, who's going to do it? And I think a lot of people don't think about that when they're going to resell is I need to have a schedule. I need to push myself. After 3 months or like, this isn't working. Well, what did you do? Like, did you do anything? Like, did you list? Did you go in and lower price? Did you go out and find more items? Whether your goal is to be part-time, full-time, you have to be a self-motivator.
You have to have the self-motivation to start, just to get yourself started. A lot of people never even start. They have this idea or all these ideas and they just don't take the baby steps forward to even start something like this. And then what keeps you going though is the discipline. You are really motivated when you first start something and then you hit a couple speed bumps, roadblocks, whatever. The discipline is what is going to keep you moving forward. That's what's going to stop you from throwing in the towel when things get tough.
Yep. Discipline and being consistent with what you're doing, whether it's part-time or full-time.
All right, guys, that's a wrap on today's episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Paycheck to Daycheck Reselling Podcast.
Anything we mentioned in this episode will be linked down below in the show notes or description down below.
Be sure to share this episode with anyone you think it will help and follow us on social media at P2D Podcast.
Thanks again for listening. Keep working towards that Daycheck.